He didn't plan to say sorry. He didn't want to say sorry. But live under pressure with the cameras rolling and nowhere to hide, Keir Starmer was forced into a moment every politician dreads. A public apology, and the man he tried to destroy was watching closely. Because the second Starmer backed down, Nigel Farage hit back harder than anyone expected. This wasn't just another political spat. This was damage control at the highest level. It all traces back to that explosive accusation, the word no serious leader should ever throw around lightly, Hitler. When Labour figures tried to link Nigel Farage and Reform UK to Nazi ideology, they crossed a line the public didn't forget. And this time they couldn't spin their way out of it. The pressure built fast. Journalists demanded answers. Legal experts questioned whether the claims were defamatory. Even Labour supporters started asking an uncomfortable question. Where is the evidence? For days, Starmer avoided it. He dodged interviews. His team issued vague statements. But the story wouldn't die, because once you accuse someone of flirting with Hitler, you don't get to quietly move on. Then it happened. A live appearance. No edits, no filters, no escape. Starmer stood there, stiff, carefully choosing every word, and finally admitted what everyone already knew. The language was wrong. The comparison went too far. He said he regretted how it was handled, an apology in everything but name, delivered as close to sorry as a lawyer would allow. And Britain noticed. But the real moment came after, because while Labour hoped this would calm things down, Nigel Farage saw it for what it was. Vindication, proof that the smear had failed. Within minutes, Farage responded, calm, direct, and brutal in its simplicity. He said this is what the establishment always does when it's losing. It panics, it smears, and when caught, it retreats without accountability. Farage didn't shout. He didn't rant. That's what made it land. He asked why ordinary voters are constantly insulted, why concerns about borders and identity are met with moral lectures instead of answers, and why calling people Nazis has become a substitute for real policy. Millions watching felt like someone was finally saying out loud what they've been thinking for years. Social media exploded again, but this time not in Labour's favour. Clips of the apology spread fast, comment sections filled with the same message. If they lied about this, what else are they lying about? Trust, once broken, doesn't come back easily. And Labour's problem is bigger than one comment, it's a pattern. Every time Reform raises an issue, Labour reaches for insults. Every time they're challenged, they cry extremism. But now, after being forced to step back publicly, that strategy looks weak. Worse, it looks desperate. You don't apologise unless you know you've gone too far. And voters know it too. This moment matters because it reveals something deeper. The balance of power is shifting. The old tactics aren't working anymore. Fear labels don't scare people the way they used to. When families are struggling, bills are rising, and communities feel ignored. Being called names just pushes them further away. Starmer tried to draw a line. Instead, he erased his own credibility. And Farage didn't need to attack. He just stood there and let Labour collapse under the weight of its own words. This story isn't finished. Not even close. Because apologies don't fix broken trust. And once the public sees behind the curtain, they don't forget. The question now isn't whether Labour made a mistake. It's how many more they can survive before voters decide they've had enough. What makes this moment so dangerous for Labour is not the apology itself, but what it confirms. For years, the party has relied on one strategy when challenged. Dismiss, discredit, dehumanise. If someone questions immigration numbers, they're racist. If they question cultural change, they're extremist. And if they gain momentum, link them to history's worst villains and hope the public looks away. But this time, the public didn't look away. They watched closely, they listened. And when Keir Starmer was forced to retreat, it exposed the playbook in real time. Behind closed doors, panic set in. Senior Labour figures knew the accusation had backfired the moment it was made. Legal advisers warned them the language was reckless. Media strategists saw the polling wobble. Focus groups showed something alarming. Voters weren't angry at Farage. They were angry at Labour. People who had never voted reform before started saying the same thing. I don't agree with everything he says, but at least he's being honest. That sentence should terrify the establishment because it signals a shift they can't control. While Labour scrambled, Reform UK did the one thing the political class never expects. They stayed disciplined. No wild statements, no emotional outbursts, just facts, calm messaging, and a relentless focus on policy, immigration enforcement, welfare, eligibility, national accountability. Issues Labour wanted buried under outrage were now front and centre again. And the more Labour tried to change the subject, the worse it looked, because when you accuse someone of being dangerous and then apologise, you confirm you were never confident in the accusation to begin with. The mainstream media tried to soften the blow. Headlines used phrases like regrettable wording and heated rhetoric on both sides, but people aren't stupid. They heard what was said, they saw who backed down, and they noticed who didn't. Farage didn't demand censorship, he didn't call for resignations, he simply asked why the same rules never apply to the political elite, why one side can smear with impunity while the other is constantly policed for tone. This is where Labour's deeper problem becomes impossible to ignore. They no longer sound like a movement fighting for ordinary people. They sound like managers protecting a system that's failing. Everything is framed through PR, through optics, through messaging, discipline. But families don't live in press releases. They live in towns where jobs are disappearing, rents are exploding, and public services are stretched to breaking point. When those people hear politicians compare their concerns to fascism, it doesn't shame them, it alienates them. The apology also reopened an old wound, Brexit. Once again, voters were reminded of how they were treated in 2016, laughed at, insulted, told they were ignorant and misled. And now, nearly a decade later, the same tone has returned. Different issue, same contempt. Labour thought those memories had faded. They were wrong. All it took was one word, spoken too freely, to bring it all rushing back. What's happening now is not just a political backlash, it's a cultural one. People are rejecting the idea that disagreement equals hatred. They're rejecting the notion that only one worldview is acceptable. And every time Labour tries to enforce moral authority instead of earning trust, that rejection grows stronger. Reform UK is benefiting not because everyone agrees with them, but because they're positioned as the alternative to a political class that refuses to listen. And here's the part Labour can't spin. Once a leader is seen apologising under pressure, authority weakens, the image of control cracks. Supporters start to question judgment, opponents smell blood, allies distance themselves quietly. Starmer wanted to look strong, instead he looked cornered, and politics, like nature, abhors weakness.